Lion saves pregnant lioness from hyenas. What happened next was shocking. The dust swirled like a tornado across the African savanna as 8 hungry hyenas closed in on their target. Amara, heavy with cubs and exhausted from days of travel, could barely lift her head. Her golden coat was matted with dirt and blood, her breathing shallow and desperate. The cackling grew louder, more menacing. This was it. The end of her story, and the story of the unborn cubs she carried. But then, cutting through the chaos like thunder, came a roar that shook the very earth beneath their feet. A massive shadow leaped into the fray, and everything changed in an instant. Before we dive into this incredible tale of courage and survival, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications to catch more heartwarming stories like this one. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. Our story begins 3 months earlier in the heart of the Serengeti, where 2 worlds were about to collide in the most unexpected way. Amara was a young lioness, barely 3 years old, living on the fringes of lion society. She had been cast out from her birth pride, not for any wrongdoing, but simply because there wasn't enough territory to support another adult female. Life as a lone lioness is one of nature's cruelest sentences. Without the protection of a pride, every day becomes a fight for survival. Every hunt is a solo mission. Every threat must be faced alone. And for Amara, things were about to get infinitely more complicated. 20 miles away, in the rocky outcroppings that bordered the Great Plains, lived Kovu, a magnificent male lion in his prime. At 5 years old and weighing nearly 400 pounds, he was everything a king of beasts should be. His mane was a crown of gold and amber that caught the sunlight like fire. His roar could be heard from miles. But Kovu carried a burden that few knew about. 2 years earlier, he had lost his mate and cubs to a devastating drought. The pain had driven him to become a solitary wanderer, avoiding other lions, avoiding the very connections that make life worth living. Fate has a way of bringing souls together when they need each other most. It was a scorching afternoon in late October when their paths first crossed. Amara was tracking a wounded gazelle for hours, her empty stomach driving her forward despite her exhaustion. The trail led her into Kovu's territory, a mistake that could have cost her everything. She never saw him coming. One moment she was focused on the scent trail, the next a massive paw slammed down just inches from her face. Kovu stood over her, his golden eyes blazing with territorial fury. Any other lioness would have fled immediately. But Amara was different. Instead of running, she looked directly into his eyes, a gesture of respect, not challenge, and held her ground. Something in her gaze stopped Kovu cold. Perhaps it was her quiet dignity, or the way she showed no fear despite being completely outmatched. Whatever it was, instead of driving her away, he stepped aside and let her continue her hunt. That single moment of unexpected mercy changed everything. Over the following weeks, an unusual courtship began. Kovu would appear at the edges of Amara's hunts, not interfering, but watching, protecting from a distance. When wild dogs threatened her kill, his presence alone was enough to send them scattering. When she struggled to take down larger prey, he would leave portions of his own kills where she could find them. It was a delicate dance of 2 wounded souls learning to trust again. Their bond deepened through shared silence and stolen glances. When the rains came early that year, they took shelter together under the same ancient baobab tree. No words passed between them. Lions communicate through presence, through the simple act of choosing to stay. By January, Amara was carrying Kovu's cubs. The pregnancy filled both of them with a hope they thought they had lost forever. Kovu became increasingly protective, establishing a larger territory and marking it more aggressively. But with the dry season approaching, competition for resources was intensifying across the savanna. The giggling death pack, That's what the local Maasai called them. 8 hyenas led by a scarred matriarch named Duma. They had been terrorizing the region for months. Unlike typical hyena clans that focused on scavenging, this pack actively hunted lions, targeting the weak, the isolated, the vulnerable. They had been watching Amara for weeks, noting her condition, tracking her movements. A pregnant lioness, especially one without a pride, represented the perfect target. Not only would they eliminate future competition, but they would send a message to other lions in the area. As Amara's pregnancy progressed, Kovu faced an impossible choice. To find enough food for both of them, he needed to range farther from their territory. But leaving her alone, even for a few hours, was dangerous. It was during one of these necessary hunting trips that disaster struck. Kovu had been tracking a massive buffalo herd, knowing that a successful hunt could feed them for days. But the herd had led him nearly 15 miles from home, much farther than he had intended. As the sun began to set, an uneasiness crept over him, the kind of primal warning that has kept predators alive for millions of years. Meanwhile, Amara had settled into their favorite resting spot, a shaded grove near a seasonal water source. Her cubs were due any day now, and the weight of pregnancy made even short walks exhausting. She dozed fitfully in the afternoon heat, unaware that 8 pairs of eyes were watching from the tall grass. Duma struck at twilight, when the light played tricks on the eyes and sounds carried strangely on the wind. The hyenas emerged from 3 different directions, cutting off every escape route. Their signature giggling filled the air, a sound that chills the blood of every creature on the African plains. Amara struggled to her feet, her maternal instincts blazing despite her physical limitations. She had 2 lives to protect now, her own and her unborn cubs. But 8 against 1 were impossible odds, even for a lioness in perfect condition. The hyenas circled closer, their powerful jaws snapping. Duma, emboldened by their numerical advantage, darted in first, going for Amara's hindquarters. The lioness spun and swiped with her claws, connecting solidly, but the effort left her off balance. Another hyena attacked from the opposite side, then another. Soon, Amara was spinning desperately in the center of a tightening circle of death, bleeding from multiple wounds, her strength fading with each passing moment. 15 miles away, Kovu's head snapped up from his hunt. Even at that distance, carried on the evening wind, he heard something that turned his blood to ice. Amara's distress call. It was a sound no lion ever wants to hear from their mate. Pure terror mixed with desperate defiance. What happened next defied every law of physics and biology. Kovu ran like a lion possessed, covering 15 miles of rough terrain in less than 20 minutes. His powerful legs ate up the distance, his lungs burning, his heart hammering with a rhythm that matched a single desperate thought. I will not lose her. I will not lose them. He crested the final ridge just as Duma lunged for Amara's throat. The lioness, weakened by blood loss and exhaustion, couldn't dodge fast enough. That's when Kovu's roar split the evening air, a sound of such raw fury and power that it seemed to pause time itself. He launched himself from the ridge, covering 30 feet in a single bound, and landed directly on top of 2 hyenas. The impact alone killed one instantly. The other tried to flee, but Kovu's massive paws pinned it to the ground. His jaws closed around its neck with a sickening crunch. What followed was not a hunt. It was a war. Kovu fought like a lion possessed, driven by a love and protectiveness that transformed him into something beyond natural limits. His claws carved through hyena flesh like sabers. His roar continued to echo across the plains, a battle cry that spoke of vengeance and protection. Duma, the pack leader, realized she had made a fatal miscalculation. This wasn't just any male lion. This was a warrior defending his family. She called for retreat, but Kovu wasn't letting any of them escape. In the space of 5 brutal minutes, 6 of the 8 hyenas lay dead or dying.
The surviving 2, including Duma herself, fled into the darkness, their tails between their legs, their pack broken forever. As silence settled over the battlefield, Kovu rushed to Amara's side. She was alive, but barely. Blood matted her golden fur, and her breathing was shallow and labored. Worst of all, the stress and trauma of the attack had triggered early labor. Under the light of a full moon, in a grove that just minutes before had been a scene of violence and terror, Amara gave birth to 3 cubs. Kovu stood guard over them, his own wounds forgotten, his eyes constantly scanning the darkness for any sign of returning threats. But here's where our story takes an unexpected turn, one that wildlife researchers still struggle to explain. As dawn broke over the African plains, Amara and Kovu weren't alone anymore. During the night, drawn perhaps by Kovu's earlier roars or by some deeper instinct, other lions had come. First came Django, an older male lion who had once been Kovu's rival. Behind him came 2 adult females and their adolescent cubs. Then more, lions from across the region, forming an impromptu pride unlike anything the researchers had ever documented. It was as if Kovu's act of heroism, his willingness to risk everything for love and family, had reminded these scattered, solitary cats what it meant to belong to something greater than themselves. What followed was 8 weeks of the most remarkable cooperative behavior ever recorded among lions. The newly formed pride took turns hunting for Amara while she recovered and nursed her cubs. They established a territory large enough to support everyone. They shared resources without conflict. Django, the former rival, became Kovu's closest ally. The females formed a tight sisterhood with Amara at its center. The cubs, both the newborns and the older juveniles, played together in integrated groups that transcended bloodlines. It was as if the violence of that night had purged something toxic from the air, leaving room for something beautiful to grow. Amara's 3 cubs, 2 males and a female, thrived in this environment of unprecedented cooperation. Fed by multiple aunties and protected by multiple uncles, they grew stronger and more confident than any cubs in recent memory. The little female, whom researchers later named Shujaa, Swahili for hero, showed remarkable intelligence and fearlessness from an early age. The males, Jensi and Baraka, meaning courage and blessing, developed into powerful juveniles with the kind of confidence that only comes from being truly loved and protected. But the miracle didn't stop there. Word of the unusual pride spread throughout the ecosystem. Other solitary lions began approaching the group, and amazingly, many were accepted. Within 6 months, what had started as a desperate rescue had evolved into the largest, most successful pride in the entire Serengeti region. The cooperation extended beyond just hunting and protection. The lions developed new forms of communication, more sophisticated territory sharing, and innovative hunting techniques that maximized success while minimizing individual risk. Wildlife biologists from around the world came to study what they dubbed the Kovu Pride, a group that seemed to have evolved beyond normal lion social structure into something entirely new. Today, 2 years later, the pride numbers over 20 individuals. Amara's 3 original cubs are now powerful juveniles preparing for their adult roles. Shujaa has already shown signs of becoming a dominant female, while her brothers display the kind of cooperative leadership style that makes their father so extraordinary. But perhaps most remarkably, the pride's influence has spread to other lion groups throughout the region. Cooperation is up, territorial conflicts are down, cub survival rates have reached historic highs across the entire ecosystem. It's as if Kovu's single act of heroic love created ripples that continue to expand, transforming not just his own family, but the very fabric of lion society itself. What makes this story so powerful isn't just the dramatic rescue. It's what it teaches us about the nature of love, sacrifice, and community. In a world that often seems defined by conflict and competition, Kovu and Amara's story reminds us that sometimes the most radical act is simply choosing to protect and care for others. Kovu didn't save Amara because he calculated the odds and found them favorable. He didn't weigh the costs and benefits. He acted from pure love. The kind of love that doesn't ask questions, doesn't count costs, and doesn't know the meaning of impossible. And that love didn't just save 2 lives that night. It created a new way of being that has transformed an entire ecosystem. As I write this script, the Kovu pride continues to thrive. Recent aerial surveys show they control nearly 300 square miles of prime territory, the largest single pride territory ever documented. Their hunting success rate is over 80% compared to the typical 30% for most lion prides. More importantly, they've had 0 cub mortality in the past 18 months, a statistic that has researchers scrambling to understand how cooperation can so dramatically improve survival odds. Kovu himself, now 7 years old, remains the undisputed leader of this remarkable family. His mane has grown even more magnificent with age, and his presence continues to attract other lions seeking the security and belonging that the pride represents. Amara has become the pride's primary matriarch, teaching younger females not just hunting techniques, but the art of cooperation that has made their group so successful. She has given birth to 2 more litters, bringing her total contribution to the pride of 7 cubs, all healthy, all thriving. The story of Kovu and Amara has implications far beyond wildlife biology. Their tale has inspired conservation efforts across Africa, with several organizations citing their story as proof that even damaged ecosystems can heal when given the chance. The Kovu pride has become a symbol of hope for conservation biologists working to protect Africa's remaining lion populations. If cooperation can emerge naturally, even among apex predators traditionally viewed as solitary competitors, what might be possible for other species, including our own? The African plains where Kovu and Amara's love story continues to unfold are under constant threat. Climate change, human encroachment, and poaching pressure mean that their grand cubs may never know the wide open spaces that made their grandparents' miracle possible. But here's the beautiful truth that their story teaches us. Love is the most powerful force in nature. When we choose to protect rather than exploit, to cooperate rather than compete, to build bridges rather than walls, that's when real miracles happen. If this story moved you, consider supporting organizations working to protect African wildlife and habitats. Share this video with friends and family. Let Kovu and Amara's legacy inspire us all to be a little braver, a little more loving, a little more willing to risk everything for the ones we care about. Because in the end, that's what makes us not just survivors, but heroes. The sun sets every day over the African savanna where our story began, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. And somewhere out there, under those endless stars, a pride unlike any other settles in for the night, living proof that love really can change everything. Their story continues, and maybe, if we're brave enough to follow their example, ours can be just as extraordinary. Don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories from the wild. And remember, every act of love, no matter how small, has the power to change the world.